Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty wild journey from literal backyard heist masters to 30,000-year-old giant flying fossils. We are diving deep into the secret world of one of nature's most misunderstood creatures, the squirrel. Now, a lot of people just write them off as cute, maybe kind of absent-minded rodents. But looking at the scientific data and some truly groundbreaking paleontology, it turns out they possess incredible memory, strategic brilliance, and a completely shocking prehistoric past. So let's get right into it and uncover the details that will absolutely change how you look at these little acrobats.
Okay, let's dive into this. So how do they actually remember where they hid thousands of nuts? I mean, most of us just assume squirrels bury their stash and then totally forget where they put it, right? Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. Honestly, you can think of their winter preparation like a highly planned, high-stakes heist movie. They aren't just relying on blind luck or a random sense of smell here. They're definitely not absent-minded. They are quite literally the reigning memory champions of the forest.
It all comes down to a survival strategy known as scatter hoarding. So instead of putting all their eggs in one basket, they spread their food out across a massive area. But you gotta wonder, how on earth do they find hundreds of scattered spots again? Well, in a really fascinating experiment back in 1999, researchers set up fake stashes and deliberately mixed up the scents to try and trick them. And the result? The squirrels almost always bypassed the fakes and found their own real stashes. It basically proved they have this highly advanced spatial memory. It's like they have a built-in GPS system.
Now, of course, not every squirrel is running the exact same playbook. Gray squirrels in colder regions are the ones heavily using scatter hoarding. They even use complex, three-dimensional mental maps of tree branches to stash food when deep snow makes digging impossible. Red squirrels, on the other hand, they prefer what's called larder hoarding. That's a strategy where they collect absolutely all of their food in one massive central pantry. But, whether they're spreading it out or piling it high, both methods require some serious intelligence to pull off in the wild.
And speaking of intelligence, we really have to talk about their criminal mastermind side. Seriously, squirrels are expert thieves. If a squirrel catches on that it's being watched by a rival, it will actually bust out a fake caching tactic. It'll dig a hole and totally pretend to bury a nut, all while expertly hiding the actual nut right inside its mouth. After tricking the would-be thief with an empty hole, it just scurries off to bury the real prize somewhere else. I mean, that level of deception, that points to some absolute top-tier cognitive ability.
And this brilliantly illustrates how their biological quirks can actually have a huge impact on our modern world. You see, a squirrel's front teeth literally never stop growing, so they have to constantly gnaw on things just to file them down. Unfortunately for us, electrical wires are very often the target. Believe it or not, they're responsible for a staggering number of power outages across the US. They even famously caused the NASDAQ stock exchange to completely shut down, not once but twice, once in 1987 and again in 1994. Crazy, right?
This brings up a really great point from researcher Dr. Noah Perillat. He notes that gray squirrels actually spend an incredible amount of time resting, watching, and socializing. Think about it. Their memory and caching systems are just so flawlessly efficient that they don't have to spend every waking second frantically running around just to survive. Having that kind of leisure time is a pretty rare luxury in the animal kingdom, and it's born entirely out of their sheer intelligence.
Section 1. Unique Biology and Habits.
Did you know there are exactly 278 known species of squirrels worldwide? It's true. They live literally everywhere, from freezing Arctic tundras to massive concrete metropolis, all the way to tropical rainforests. And here's a pretty fun fact for you. The word squirrel actually comes from a Greek word that means shadow tail. When they move quickly, those massive bushy tails create a dark silhouette. It's a look that gets even more pronounced in the winter for species whose fur pigment actually darkens. Now, among all that massive diversity, the flying squirrels are, without a doubt, some of the most fascinating. Just take the Siberian flying squirrel, for example, which, by the way, is the only flying squirrel species found in Europe. They possess what's called a patagium. That's basically a parachute-like, furry, gliding membrane of skin that stretches right between their front and hind legs. And it allows them to navigate the high forest canopy with just incredible grace.
So, the crucial point is this. Your average Siberian flying squirrel weighs a mere 150 grams and is barely 20 centimeters long. Yet, just by stretching out that patagium, it can glide over 100 meters from one tree to another. That's the length of an entire football field. With a glide ratio reaching up to 3.31, they act as these tiny, silent gliders soaring way above all the dangers lurking on the forest floor.
And that amazing gliding ability opens the door to a surprisingly rich diet. They eat a whole mix of things: leaves, cones, nuts, berries, alder and birch catkins, and yeah, even the occasional bird egg or baby bird if they can get it. They are highly resourceful. They're also mostly nocturnal, and they absolutely love to make their homes in abandoned woodpecker holes, quietly soaring through the night to forage.
Section 2. Prehistoric giant flying squirrels.
Okay, so modern flying squirrels are amazing, right? But what if I told you they had these totally mind-boggling giant ancestors? Back in 2019, during some excavations in the Primorsky region of Russia, a team of researchers led by Dr. Mikko Tionov found 30,000-year-old fossilized teeth and jaw fragments. After running the analysis, they confirmed that this was a completely new, extinct species of giant flying squirrel. Its official name? Pterista tetucensis.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of the thing. We just mentioned that modern Siberian flying squirrels are about 20 centimeters long, right? Well, this 30,000-year-old prehistoric giant had a massive arm span of 1.5 meters. I mean, just imagine walking through the forest and seeing a 5-foot-wide shadow silently gliding through the canopy right above you. No way. It was a truly awe-inspiring discovery for the paleontology world.
Researchers actually believe these giants lived pretty isolated lives, very similar to modern flying squirrels down in Southeast Asia. And even though their bone structure was quite a bit different from their modern cousins, that immense 1.5-meter wingspan was incredibly effective. It allowed them to glide up to 50 meters through the air, surviving on a simple diet of insects, fruits, and leaves.
When we put them side by side like this, the scale of their evolution just becomes incredibly clear. On one hand, you've got a 20-centimeter modern glider hiding out in old woodpecker holes, and on the other, a 1.5-meter prehistoric giant basically blanketing the skies of the Russian Far East. But despite that massive difference in size, they are branches of the exact same evolutionary tree that spent millions of years perfecting that gliding membrane.
Section 3. The Silent Forest Architects. Let's move to and see how this builds together as we look at their role in our ecosystems today.
Whether we're talking about their giant prehistoric ancestors or the wire-chewing modern species we know today, their intelligence and hoarding habits aren't just about their own survival. As we touched on earlier, a single squirrel maintains a wildly complex 3D mental map of a 6 to 8 acre territory just to track its hidden caches. But, no matter how smart they are, nature has a funny rule. You just don't always get everything back.
And this is exactly where nature's flawless balance steps in, and why all of this matters so much. Yes, for sure, squirrels are a crucial food source for predators like snakes, coyotes, hawks, and owls. But more importantly, think about those scatter-hoarded nuts, the ones they inevitably forget about or have to leave behind when fleeing a predator. Well, they sprout when spring arrives. Every forgotten stash is literally the birth of a new tree. They are acting as the primary, silent architects expanding the very force that sustain the whole ecosystem.
So I want you to really think about this the next time you see one running along your fence in the backyard. Will you just see a simple rodent, or will you see a prehistoric survivor and a mastermind of the forest? I mean, these guys come from a lineage that featured 1.5-meter giant gliders. They carry 3D digital maps of the forest in their heads, they deceive their rivals like little secret agents, and they quite literally plant the forests that we breathe in. Perhaps the true masterminds of nature aren't the ones building giant structures, but the ones silently burying seeds. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.